We always hear about how there's nothing to do in Stockton and it's a dull place and people want to leave because they want to have a good time. They want something to do. Well, I'll tell you what, this past week, I did about as much as I could do, and I left about three-quarters of it that I was going to do out there because I couldn't get to it because that first third that I did just about killed me because it was so good. So let's recap that a little bit. Okay, and as our theme song was chugging into the show, I'll just chug right into this last week here with some of the things that came up. Of course, I'm armed with my usual tools tonight, my clipboard with notes. But again, these never fail me. I don't ever have to reboot them, turn them on, charge the battery, any of that kind of stuff. Got my usual set of pens. Of course, this would be the sign of a nerd person, but I wear them inside my coat pocket where they're not visible. So I'm armed inside, and then of course I have my one note to modernity is that I have my cell phone mobile app thing here, so I can sort of keep track of things like Giant scores and all this other trending things that are going on out there. I can tell you the wind is blowing out in Wrigley Field tonight as the Giants tackle the Cubs. Anyway, so here's what happened. Wednesday night, one of our greatest skyscrapers maybe the greatest skyscraper at the moment in downtown Stockton, the Court Tower, had an open house. I love the Court Tower. If you listened to the first episode we had, I described several buildings in Stockton and the incredible neon signs that used to be on top of them. I'm not going to go through all that again, of course. But the Court Tower was once Bank of America. It had a huge sign, neon sign, on the top that Bank of America in big red letters. So anyway, it's the Court Tower now, and it's a wonderful place. And they've got a new tenant in there. They've got a new printing company in there. For that reason, they held an open house. So I started out on the lower floor where the printing company was, but eventually I wandered up to the 10th floor. Now, that may not sound terribly interesting, but the 10th floor of the Court Tower is actually quite an amazing place. I bring this up because, once again, I want to point out all these incredible things we have in Stockton that people don't know about and why they should just be thrilled to death to be here. The 10th floor of the Court Tower is what urban experience is all about. After you take I've been told, by the way, fastest elevators in San Joaquin County in the Court Tower. And these aren't just any elevators. These are the Westinghouse Selectomatic elevators. It says it right there, Selectomatic, because these are one of the first set of push-button elevators in Stockton at some point. Anyway, after I was whisked up to the 10th floor at almost neck-breaking speed, had to pop my ears. After I got up there, what's beautiful about that is this beautiful reception area, this big fancy desks and huge, the ceilings in that 10th floor are something like 12 or 14 feet high. And then as you walk down through all the hallways, you've got these huge doors on both sides. And everyone has frosted glass windows and big name tags and stuff. But when you come to the end of the hallway, there's a huge boardroom. And this is not just any boardroom. This is a classic boardroom. I'm going to come back to the boardroom in a moment. First of all, I want to let you know that if you go into the main office is also has a kitchen, a dining area, and a bar. That's the kind of office I aspire to get to someday. I'm not there now. Although with the kind of job I have is zero tolerance on certain things. The bar thing I'd have to kind of leave out or stick to fresh squeezed lemonade or orange juice. But in any event, it's an incredible thing. But most especially, there's a fireplace on the 10th floor of the Court Tower. And not just any fireplace. This is a big fancy marble thing and carved wood and all kinds of stuff. It's just spectacular to see a fireplace in the top floor of an urban skyscraper. So you've got 3 offices surrounding the boardroom. Now the boardroom has this long, huge, polished, extraordinarily heavy table. In fact, I found out that to get that table into that boardroom, they had to bring it in by helicopter. That's pretty remarkable. I guess they had to bring it in through a huge set of windows or knock a hole in the side of the building. I'm not quite sure how they got it in there, but that's how big the boardroom table is that they could not bring it up any conventional method using stairs or elevators or anything else. It had to be flown in by helicopter. Now, I'm not sure what year that happened, by the way. I'll get more. At some point, I'll do some more research on that. But that's pretty remarkable in and of itself. Now, again, this is the top of the 10th floor of the Court Tower, downtown Stockton, at the corner of Sutter and Main Street is where the Court Tower is. Right now, part of the bottom floor has a International Charter Academy school there, International Baccalaureate type of school. So, I'm on the 10th floor, and I'm in this boardroom. Now, this is how dramatic this boardroom is. This is the kind of boardroom. You have the huge, stuffed, upholstered chairs all lined up around it. I forgot how many there are. I want to say 20 or something like that. So, just to tell you how dramatic this is, I'm going to give you a little bit of history, which I always do. You can't ever be around me and not get history at some point. It just comes out. If you think about television, and right here what we're doing with KXVS, the voice of Stockton, where you have all the internet streaming, you have interactive internet, people, you see on network television news now, you see people with polls, instantaneous polls on Fox and MSNBC and all that, where as the people are speaking, the waves are going up and down, of the positives and the negatives and the percentages. Anyway, this was all kind of forecast or predicted amazingly in a movie called Network, 1977. Did you see that movie, Dustin?
I've heard of it. I might need a refresher. Who's the lead in it?
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of refresher because it has to do with the boardroom on the Court Tower. Mm-hmm. There really is a point to all of this. Okay, in the movie is Faye Dunaway, who, these are all old people now, of course. Most of them are dead now.
Before she messed up the Oscars this year.
That's right. But Faye Dunaway was, at that time, in late 30s, early 40s, absolutely stunning, gorgeous. Okay, and probably one of the top 2 or 3 female box office stars in that era. Then there was William Holden, a very big-time actor from the 40s and 50s who was still commanding top movies in the 60s. By 1977, he was kind of on the end of his career, but still a big name. Mm-hmm. And then there was a guy who wasn't that well-known yet, but he became a huge star. And I'm not sure how many people out there are going to know who I'm talking about, but his name is Ned Beatty, kind of a chubby guy. Spectacular actor, though. And then I can't remember the name of the actual actor who's the star of the movie. I know the name of the character is Howard Beale. And the name of Peter Finch.
Yeah, Peter Finch.
There, thank you. Yeah. He actually died a month after the movie was finished.
Wow.
And he died, and he won an Academy Award posthumously, I believe. I think Ned Beatty might have got a supporting role, nomination, at least a nomination, if not an award. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to look that up since I brought the movie up. I didn't have a chance to research all that.
Robert Duvall was in there, young Robert Duvall.
Yes, Robert Duvall was in it. That's right.
Before he became The Godfather was
in fact, right? He was one of the top networks. They were all working for a network called UBN in this movie. Mm-hmm. So here's the deal: Howard Beale's an aging star, not particularly good-looking anchorman of news, Walter Cronkite type, mm-hmm. And he. He gets the word he's going to be let go because he's kind of old and boring and the ratings are down. So the next to last night that he's supposed to broadcast at network news, he ends his newscast by saying, and tomorrow night I might just blow my brains out on the air because they say they need ratings. Well, that causes a media sensation. So they're happy to bring him back the next night. The next night he comes out a rainstorm, his hair's all dragging down, he's got a raincoat, he looks like hell, and he starts talking about how mad people are. Now, the reason this is relevant to today, besides the fact that all this stuff about interactive broadcasting, reality television, all that stuff that you take for granted now, didn't really happen until the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. This was all forecast in this movie in 1977. Well, he does this whole newscast. It's a rambling monologue, and finally he talks about how angry people are. And some people may remember this or may have heard it without knowing what it comes from. There's a famous saying, "I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." Well, Howard Beale said that in the movie. People start shooting out to their windows and flying their window and shouting that. Okay, so suddenly he's a media star. Now, of course, as with any popular media star, at some point somewhere they cross the line. Mm-hmm. Well, 1977, in some broadcast, he starts raving about how the United States is being owned too much by foreign interests. And at that particular time, the Japanese were the thing. Now it'll probably be China. So he's raving, and he causes a media firestorm about foreign investment in the United States. It so happens a big deal is canceled because of his broadcasts. Well, here's the final part of the story. The foreign deal that was canceled because of his broadcast was the Arabs and the Japanese putting money into buying the network he was working for, which was in financial trouble. So he's immediately put on an airplane and flown to New York on a red-eye flight. And this is the scene that makes me think of the court tower in Stockton with this boardroom. I just watched this last night on YouTube just to remember how great this thing is. They have him in this huge boardroom with this huge long table, and all the lights are off, but they have the green banker's lamps, if you know what I'm talking about. Those lamps have a brass base, a stem, and then a glass.
Oh, yeah.
Green glass. They got them all lined up, about 20 of them all turned on, but the lights are off in the room. Howard Beale's sitting there, and Ned Beatty starts screaming, "There is no United States, there is no Russia, and there is no this and that. Those are not. We don't have democracy. We don't have international countries. We have Exxon, and we have RCA, and we have General Motors," and he goes and names off all these multinational corporations. That's what makes the world go today. What he's talking about is the global economy that we all again take for granted today was again being forecast in this movie. But I can't even do justice to the speech. He does this dramatic dialogue of about 4 minutes where he's screaming at the top of his lungs, and then he calms. This is Ned Beatty now. Howard Beale just sitting there in awe. And of course, they're showing shots looking up at Ned Beatty. And he's backlit from behind, which means his face is partially dark. But this booming voice is coming out. And so it's like the face of God is speaking to Howard Beale. And then he says, and after this long rant, this incredible speech about the multinational corporations actually being the natural order of things in the world, he then, in a calm voice, says, "Am I getting through to you, Mr. Beale?" And then he says, "I've chosen you to go tell the television audience about this." And Howard Beale, totally mesmerized, says, "I think I've seen the face of God." He goes out there, changes his whole tune, talks about how good the global economy is. The ratings go down, and then he becomes a liability to the network. They can't stand him. His ratings are awful. People hate him, and they actually kill him on the air.
Wow.
That's how the movie ends. I hate to spoil it for anybody, but the movie's 40 years old. Okay, now, my point is, here in humble Stockton, California, everything I do comes back to Stockton because this is Stockton Alive! ! Our boardroom in the 10th floor of the court tower is impressive enough to remind me of the boardroom in the movie Network. Just like I said that we had the show Big Valley, which competed with Stockton on ABC against South Lake Tahoe and the Bonanza with NBC. We have a boardroom on the top floor of the 10th floor of the court tower, the Spectacular. Okay, so I start my Wednesday there. There is actually a point to all this, of course. I start my Wednesday there, and then I wind up thinking, okay, Deliberation Room, which is down the street, relatively new bar lounge in downtown Stockton, has Wednesday karaoke. So I go over and this is 2 blocks down the street from the court tower. This is on California Street. It's at 19 North California Street. It's a half a block south of Weber Avenue. That confuses people. Anyway, the Deliberation Room is this grand was once a historic restaurant in Stockton, which I always forget the name, the Senor Tamale or something like that. That's before my time. I don't know that one real well, and I always blow the name on it. But anyway, it closed many years ago, been empty for about a dozen years. This young entrepreneur's gone in, completely remodeled the whole thing inside. It's got elegant paneled wooden walls. It's got big, large shelves of the bottles of the adult beverages up on the wall. And the coolest thing is, it has one of those library ladders that rolls on wheels, and you have to climb up and down to get the different bottles for things that people order. So I did a little bit of karaoke there. And
what was your song of choice, Nate?
Well, every now and then, I occasionally, and I'll give you about one bar tonight. Everybody loves somebody sometime. Everybody falls in love somehow. Something in your eyes just told me that sometime is now. That's Dean Martin doing Everybody Loves Somebody. No, it's not Dean Martin. It's me, and I'm not Dean Martin. But that's what the song is. Sometimes I can hit it, sometimes I can't. Now, that night, I also sang I Left My Heart in San Francisco. For reasons I'll never be able to explain, I can always open up in the second half of that song. When I open up and let my voice boom out, then I actually get on key and I actually sound pretty good. I have no singing talent, no singing lessons. I don't claim to be a singer. What I was a former radio broadcaster. Well, I guess now I'm a present radio broadcaster. But anyway, I used to be a broadcaster, primarily radio. I did a lot of television too. Not a star myself on the air, but I produced a lot of television. And I was primarily a sports play-by-play announcer. But so anyway, that's what I did there. I sang that, and I did I Left My Heart in San Francisco, and I wandered on home at a fairly late hour. And then, of course, I had to get right up and go in very early the next morning and do the Downtown Comeback Club over at the Fusion Boba Cafe in downtown Stockton. By the way, it's not our point in this show to like specifically promote businesses exactly, but it is my point to talk to you about why Stockton is alive! ! And the Fusion Boba Cafe is one of those great little places that we now have downtown that is just really great. And there's a lot of them here on the Miracle Mile, too. The Fusion Boba Cafe has all fresh foods. Almost no gluten stuff, almost no MSGs. It's all fresh food. It's restocked every week. It's salads, sandwiches. Now they've got barbecued meats like tri-tip and other great delicacies. They have chopped melons, like watermelon and cantaloupe and honeydew and all that stuff. They have bagels, and then they have all the spectacular different kinds of coffee that you could get like you do at the Impresso Coffee Shop here, or, of course, at a Starbucks. There's also the Freedom Coffee in downtown Stockton is pretty impressive. And, of course, downtown we have our Trail Coffee Roasters. Stockton has its own micro coffee brewery where they bring in fresh beans from the Jesus Mountain in, I think it's Nicaragua. I mean, just think of that. A Stockton guy owns a mountain in Nicaragua, imports fresh coffee beans, grinds and roasts them to perfection right there in downtown Stockton, right off of Minor Avenue, what a place is now called the Alley. It's between Hunter and San Joaquin Street in the middle of the block. There's a little alleyway you go in, and there's a little coffee shop there. Well, can't really say coffee shop. Some nice little tables and chairs where you can sit down and have a cup of coffee in souvenir mugs, but the coffee is literally roasted right in that place. And they will actually be moving to a newer, bigger location in downtown in the not-too-distant future. They're going to move to California Main Street, which I think is very exciting, by the way. But so anyway, you've got that. And next morning I go out and I do the breakfast, the Downtown Comeback Club meeting, which I'll describe in another meeting, another show. I'm not going to go into it right now today, but and then I work my way through a fairly pressure-packed day, and so naturally I want to go to Taco Thursday at the Deliberation Room. I should point out the Deliberation Room is the first new place of this type in downtown. I mentioned it's wood panel on the inside. It's got a beautiful brick facade on it. It's a developing facade, I should say. That part of it that's complete is beautiful. It's got bricks and a huge, beautiful black door, and the black door has a kind of a closed-up, decoratively boarded window with bars. It's supposed to look like a speakeasy, and it's supposed to have that look of a 20s, 30s bar. Now, inside, when you're in there, most of the time, it depends on if they have a special event going on, a change of music. But when you're in there, they play big band music and swing music. You can be having lunch, sitting there having lunch, and all of a sudden Benny Goodman's Sing, Sing, Sing comes on, or In the Mood, or Take the A Train, one of these great songs, and all you're just eating your salad or whatever, and all of a sudden this great music's behind you. Of course, music is all in the eyes of the listener or the ears of the listener. It's all subjected to what you like or don't like, but I happen to like that. For lunchtime particularly, I like that kind of music because you can hear it, but you can also tune it out if you want. It also is loud enough that you can hear it. It's good background music, but it doesn't overwhelm a conversation. And so you can visit, have lunch, and have this music in the background. Okay, so we're talking Thursday here, and I'm Taco Thursday now. Now, what they usually have on Taco Thursday is little mini tacos.
Everybody loves tacos.
Exactly. And these are usually, and they're cooked, they're fresh on a little barbecue thing. They're not even out of the kitchen. They actually set up a little barbecue thing that's right there, cooked in front of your eyes, just $2. They're served steaming hot, they're mouth-watering. Nothing like that goes better with an adult beverage. So there's Taco Thursday now. So I get up, so Wednesday I was out late doing karaoke after an open house. Of course I had a few a reasonable number of adult beverages. So then Taco Thursday, I'm out there, and then my Peruvian party wife, Becky, my wife. By the way, I call her Peruvian party wife. She was quite the party woman as a younger person. She now claims I'm more the party person, but we met. I'm not going to go into the story tonight, but we met at the Lady Luck Casino in Las Vegas.
Ooh.
I could give you a whole Adam Sandler movie out of the night that we met.
This sounds like a movie.
Not only that, but the Lady Luck then was a dumpy little flat top casino. My favorite thing about the Lady Luck Casino, I can never say this without laughing. They had a huge slot machine. I mean, this thing was like 10 feet tall.
Like they do in the movies?
Yeah, about 8 feet wide. And I think it had 7 slots, which is the whole key. You had to get all 7. I think you had to get 7 sevens to actually win much of anything. It took silver dollars, by the way. This is 1983 it was happening. Silver dollars worth a lot of money in 1983. It still is, in my opinion. But then
Nevada's known for.
But here's the grand prize. I don't know if anyone's going to know what I'm talking about when I say this. If you hit 7 sevens on this humongous jackpot, the handle, the ball on the handle was this big, and it was a tremendous thrill just to pull the thing. But the grand prize, if you hit 7 sevens in a straight line, was a DeLorean motor car.
Wow. From Back to the Future.
Yes. Now, I never saw that car move an inch. I hope at some point they turn on the engine or pumped air into the tires or something, but I never saw it move.
By the way, the history of Las Vegas is awesome.
It is.
Yeah,
Las Vegas is.
They have a great museum down there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And they have museums of different types, and one of which is a great car museum at the Asian, not Golden Gate, no. One of the more Asian type casinos on the Strip has a car museum underneath its casino.
I heard the
floor.
mob museum's really nice too.
Yes.
Yes. Which everybody knows Vegas was built by the mob.
So
But back to your story.
Taco Thursday. Well, now we're getting to the good part,
Okay.
and you guys are going to know this part of it, because what happens on Thursday night, every other Thursday night at the ALIVE?
Tower Up.
Power Up! I get to talk about having a great time while promoting our fundraiser at the same time as a legitimate part of our show.
By the way, I saw you earlier on Thursday too.
Oh, where was that?
afternoon at the State of the City.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you forgot about that.
I completely forgot about. Yes, how can I forget about State of the City?
Saw you in one of the buses.
That's right. That's right. And that's one reason why that was such a long day.
Yeah.
That's right. I started out at the Downtown Comeback Club meeting. I'm running around with RTD people. Then we rush out to the State of the City. Then we're there, meeting, greeting, and talking to all kinds of people. And then Mayor Tubbs gives a really great speech, except that as we broadcast people would know, I'm sure all of us that were there that had anything to do with broadcasting, probably especially OJ out there, Orlando Jose, probably just wanted to run up personally and fix the microphone and the whole situation with the microphone so we could hear the speech better.
Yes.
But I won't go into that because we don't want to be negative.
No.
It's a great speech. Great things are said. And Mayor Tubbs actually said some terrific things about RTD, by the way, which, again, I won't go into now. I'll have a transportation show one day.
That'd be awesome.
To talk about. And the reason I would do that is because legitimately Stockton has incredible transportation.
Yes, it does.
We have great equipment. We have great infrastructure. We have great service. Compared to most cities in the U.S., it's fairly remarkable, including, as I like to point out almost every show, an inland ocean port.
Which I saw one of those boats, and it was really big.
Yes, that's right. There was a boat dock.
Yes, it was from Panama.
That's right.
Panama.
That's right. So anyway,
Yeah.
So there's the state of the. That's right, state of the city. Then out to the open house, and then out to the Taco Thursday, and then out to Tower Up. Okay, so Tower Up, and we didn't just have anybody there. We had, is it Kyle Thomason?
Yes, former American Idol contestant.
Yes.
Stockton
Now,
native.
I knew kind of who this guy was, but you could look
Yeah.
at me. I'm an older guy. The gray hair, and as I mentioned, I've already got the gray mustache now, which is like the final turning point where you're old and there's no turning back. There's no part of me that looks young anymore. So I'm not real in tune with all the modern musicians and young people and all that. I know some of them. But wow, that guy is amazing. You talk about energy and charisma.
And he was runner-up, I believe, in the voice of the Stockton song competition too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, he has a rare, unique ability. And I'm usually very critical of this. He has the unbelievable, rare, unique ability to take a really popular song, completely modify it, make it sound as good or better. And I won't say better because a great song
Makes it sound unique.
Yeah, it makes it unique, but it's good unique. It's
To
not
his
like
style.
he ruins it.
Yeah.
And then he involves the audience with it too. And he kind of jumps up and down and sings and does all these things. And he has a great voice. And he's a good musician. So amazing. I'd never seen him perform before. I know all of you have because you've had him here before. I think one time when I was a guest on the governor's show, like almost 2 years ago at Delta College. Seems like he came on that night or something. Because I remember there was a big buzz about this guy, but I didn't know who he was then. But anyway, so he was pretty amazing. So, of course, my Peruvian party wife and I stayed for the whole thing.
Oh, and we had a guest appearance that night, too.
We were going to go for 30 minutes or whatever and say hello and just, moral support for Tower Up and go get him Dustin and go get him OJ and hang in there and we love you, Xenia, and all that kind of stuff. And then Dominique's there and all the usual. But all of a sudden, we're caught up in his performance. And then the professor shows up. And, of course, she does what she usually does, which is get a round of champagne for everybody. That's very classy and cool. And she's always really elegantly dressed. By the way, the women of KXVS always dress beautifully for Tower Up. That's one of the exciting things about Tower Up is all these young folks actually dressing up and making it an excitement. Now, of course, I was wearing my usual party outfit. And you guys actually don't know me that well yet at KXVS, but among the slightly older crowd that goes out, and I'm going to name in a little while all the places you can go to at night in Stockton for a good time, young or old, although I'm giving you more of the older stuff probably. But I'm actually relatively well known in Stockton for being overdressed for going out. It's because I come straight from work. And part of that's because I usually ride the bus. And I literally just take the bus out somewhere to meet my wife. And then the beauty is we only have one car to go home. And so I'm usually in a suit and tie. Now, for all those young ladies out there, I can also say another reason why I generally kind of now like to do this is all the young women think, oh, you got to get that tie off. You got to take the coat off. So the young ladies start fussing over me. I won't deny that that's kind of nice. When you're at my age and your mustache is turned old and you actually get some female attention and they're saying that you need to take your tie off, your coat off, and chill out and relax a little bit, that's actually very exciting stuff to us old folks, So anyway, that's always, I get positive attention in a backdoor sort of way.
By the way, also that night at Tower Up, Brandon James made a guest appearance. So we had both the city Stockton songs sung.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that was some great talent there.
Yes,
That's right. You're absolutely right. I forgot about that. So, of course, that night went until now Tower Up officially, correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin, the official hours of Tower Up are 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. 8
p.m. to 12 p.m. But
okay.
well, hour off, but still, it's fine.
But many stay until 1 a.m.
Many stay till closing time.
I mean, why do you artificially jump out the door at midnight, of course?
Yes.
Which reminds me of, I have another of my little tiny anecdotes, so I won't go too far with this one, but my wife and I, and my family, I might add on this, my two kids, two sons, we actually had the great thrill in December of 2001 of sailing on a ship known as the Queen Elizabeth II. Now, I don't think that's going to raise too many eyebrows here at KXVS, but that was the only ocean liner for about 20 years that kept a regular schedule going across the Atlantic Ocean. It actually was the ship that replaced the Queen Mary. And I'm talking about the Queen Mary that is in Long Beach.
Yeah, it's what people rent out now.
Right. Yeah, I know. And poor Queen Mary's having trouble now. But
yes.
The Queen Mary arguably is the most famous ship in the world, probably. Well, the Queen Elizabeth II replaced it. Had the Queen Elizabeth II failed, we would have lost all scheduled transatlantic ocean lining.
Wow.
And an ocean liner is totally different than a cruise ship. It actually goes somewhere and goes relatively fast. It actually goes out into the open ocean, which cruise ships basically can't do. Cruise ships are essentially flat-bottomed hotels sitting sideways on the water that go about 10 knots. The Queen Elizabeth II goes 27.5 knots in the open sea and used to cruise at 33 before they realized that no one was in that much, that anyone sailing on the ship was no longer in a hurry anymore. So they slowed it down by one day and made a lot more money and made it more profitable by crossing in 6 days instead of 5. But anyway, we got to sail on that. The reason I mentioned this has to do with the late hours, and it relates to the show. Everything relates, because I'm talking about how Stockton Alive almost killed me. On the Queen Elizabeth II, now granted this is 16 years ago, a little bit younger then, mustache wasn't gray, my hair really wasn't gray there neither, but they had a beautiful disco lounge in the rear of the ship called the Yacht Club. And of course, being British, they always had these clever little sayings. So the Yacht Club's hours were 7 p.m. until the wee hours of the morning. That's how they defined it. 7 p.m. until the wee hours of the morning. Well, you want to know who defined the wee hours of the morning, don't you? So the wee hours of the morning, of course, were defined by my Peruvian party wife and myself. On a typical evening, we would leave the Queen Elizabeth II at about the yacht club at about 3:30 in the morning. The crew would basically beg us to go back to our cabins. I would then walk the ship at night after that and I would go to bed about 4:15 in the morning. I used to usually get an order of hot tea and toast in my room or my cabin at about 4 in the morning. Then I'd be up at 7:15 for breakfast. So for 12, now this was not just a crossing of the ocean. We went to the Canary Islands and Madeira Islands, sailed on the coast of Africa, and then eventually went to Fort Lauderdale. It wasn't the typical trip across from Southampton, New York. So after being in the wee hours of the morning till 3:30 almost every morning and then walking the deck of the ship and having my hot tea and toast, I would then get up about 7-something in the morning to make sure I got breakfast. So for 12 days, my basic hours were 7:15 in the morning to about 3:45 in the morning.
Wow.
I could not possibly begin to even think of doing that now. But that was 16 years ago. So I still have a little bit of that in me, though, of course. So there's Thursday. We wanted to put Tower Up, and remember, Tower Up, we're raising money for KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, your local radio show, your local radio station and broadcasters, the only live, regular, ongoing, around-the-clock local broadcast people.
And basically talk radio.
And talk radio.
Yes.
Talk radio that, by the way, has some quality to it and isn't just a bunch of cheap stuff designed to get people angry or start revolutions. Yes.
And same song you won't hear every 5 minutes.
That's right. Well, yeah. We only have our little chugging train at the beginning and the end of the show. We don't interrupt in the middle of all that. Yes. We don't do a theme song every 5 to 6 minutes to bump ourselves into a break.
Commercial free too.
Yes, that's right. So
basically.
Anyway, we do want you, of course, to bring your money and your dollar bills and your checkbooks and your ATM cards to think about KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, to raise our tower. I never leave home without this, by the way.
Okay,
I carry this with me. So anyway, so then we get home, and I'm still kind of sort of okay. But what I didn't tell you is I was working long hours this week. That's the part of this whole story I forgot to bring. Besides, I forgot the state of the city, which I'll talk about in another show. That's not part of my show today, because this is not a politics show. This is Stockton Alive, and
You could come on Politics Panoramic on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I got more politics in me than most people want to hear. But
we should talk one day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One day we'll do a Stockton Alive. We'll talk about how politics is alive in Stockton. But anyway.
Sure, that'd be fun.
I mean, and Eggman going for CSU and all that stuff. But anyway, 2 nights during this week in which I'm out on karaoke Wednesday and taco Thursday. One night I worked until 9:22 p.m. and one night I worked until 8:18 p.m. I think it was after, if I got my memory straight here, it was the Wednesday night after I did the karaoke that I got up and went to work at 4 in the morning because I had huge deadlines on my job.
Yeah.
But see, the whole point here is Stockton is so alive that I still decided to do both. I had to do the deadlines and
you have to make a compromise somewhere.
Well, I actually didn't compromise is the entire problem here. But so by the time Friday comes around, I'm a little weary, of course. And my wife and I, the famous last word, oh, yeah, we'll just have a drink or two. And so we go to the deliberation room. I do usually go there every Friday because it's a half a block from where I work and it's new. I love it. It's downtown. It's classy and I want it to succeed. So we meet there, and my wife also only works 2 blocks from where I do. So we're both within 2 blocks of the deliberation room. So we go there. Oh, okay, our friend Ralph Bunwettis is playing with live music at the Ave. So we'll go support Ralph. And, he's just playing from 6 to 9 p.m. So we'll have 2 or 3, drinks, a couple dances. Now, Ralph plays classic, a little bit of disco, a lot of classic rock, and he can do popular stuff. And he also can do Engelbert Humperdinck and Dean Martin, some of the more older classic stuff that a lot of people probably wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But he actually can do the songs, not only that, but he can actually kind of mimic their voices. And he's not an impersonator, that's not what I'm saying. But he sings with some of the same sound and personality. Or Bobby Darin, for example, with Mac the Knife. So anyway, but of course what happens is by the time Ralph stops playing, through some minor miracle, the DJ that comes in for all the young people. Now, if you've been there long enough, you realize it has a distinctly different personality, different times of day and different nights of the week. Friday night, it goes from old folks happy hour, early in the evening, to the young, hip, chic crowd coming in. So the DJ came on. It just so happened he played a few songs right off the bat we liked. So we stayed a little longer. Then the young folks, I've discovered there's this thing where young folks, if the older people appear as though they're still ambulatory and they're not in threat of like doubling over with a heart attack or a stroke, and if they, speak without garbled words and have kind of a certain spunk about them, the young people actually love to have them and actually adopt them. So, of course, what happened is that the young people adopted my Peruvian party wife, Becky, and I. And so, long story short, we were at the Ave until basically closing Friday night. So...
You guys spent most of Thursday and Friday at the Ave.
Well, let's see. Let's just say that when I made breakfast for us on Saturday morning, that was a kind of a meal of survival. Never did coffee and eggs taste so not only good but necessary. Now, here's what I missed on Saturday, because this is all part of the Stockton scene, and I don't want to leave all this out. I had intended to go on Jane's Walk.
Which I attended.
Oh, you were in Jane's Walk.
Yeah.
And see, I missed you because I just enjoyed too much of Stockton being alive.
I was there with
Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night.
I was there with our friend Roy Morales from Chase Chevrolet.
Oh, yeah, I know, I've been missing Roy. And Roy and I always usually bump into each other. And his wife, who's now known as Kate.
He told me this story on our walk.
Yeah, and I knew her as Kathy in high school at Manteca High. And actually, she recognized me, originally.
Yeah, Roy told me this story.
Yeah, and that was at a fundraiser at the...
Because I mentioned your show that was going to be on tonight.
And we discovered all this at a really high-class fundraiser outdoors at the Annunciation Church. And on that particular event, my wife and I won a beautiful, huge barbecue pit with a single raffle ticket.
Nice. I love those raffles.
And we were dragged there at the last minute by a wonderful lady named Martina Marios, who some of you in here probably know from the Save the Stockton Foundation, who's trying to get the former brass water fountain moved over to the Martin Luther King Park. And she begged us to go to that fundraiser that night. We ran into Roy Morales and Kate, and then we won the barbecue pit, which just barely fit in my 1999 ubiquitous white Plymouth minivan with the dents on the right-hand side. But those vehicles are worth their weight in gold. Never, ever trade them in or give them. They have no resale value whatsoever. They have no trade-in value, but they're the greatest vehicles ever made. So anyway, there's what killed me. So I missed the Jane's Walk the next morning. And Jasmine Leak is the one who created that with Third City Coalition.
Yep.
My wife and I have known Jasmine for a long, long time. And we also love the Third City Coalition, all the things she's doing. Yeah, I should point out the Third City Coalition is located in, you guessed it, the Court Tower.
Her, Sarah Washington, Emily.
Yes.
They do a great job over there.
And then, of course, what was supposed to happen was as I did Jane's Walk, then I was just going to walk right on up to the Miracle Mile, or to the north end of the Miracle Mile, to Caldwell Park.
Yeah, where
the stock market was.
Yeah,
where
Jane's Walk ended at the stock market.
That's what I thought. Yes, it was all beautiful, coordinated event. The weather was absolutely gorgeous that day. A little bit warm, but still gorgeous. Well, what was the temperature? Like 80-something?
Yes, it was really warm that morning, actually.
Yeah, that was. I actually got up early that morning and walked Victory Park, which I do quite often, including today, I might add. Unfortunately, the walk that usually kind of clears the cobwebs and kind of gets the blood circulating, kind of puts me back in rhythm, didn't do much for me that morning. So anyway, so I missed. So there's Jane's Walk.
The next one.
And then there's the stock market.
Yes.
Now, as if that wasn't enough, the other thing I might have attended if Stockton Alive hadn't almost killed me on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, was there was an event at the Sycamore on Saturday night.
Matt Amon?
Yes. Matt Amon with the Huddle and the Sycamore Club had, and I don't remember the name of the person, but Stockton's great literacy person and incredible poet Paula Scheel, no less authority than Paula Scheel, who I ran into at the end of my Victory Park walk that morning, told me, and I can't remember the name, but there's an artist, a very famous, good artist, who was going to have paintings on display and some other stuff at the Sycamore, which I believe also has live music and drinks and stuff on those type of social events. And it was only a $5 cover charge to go there. But again, Saturday I just wound up... Well, actually, my wife and I had to drag ourselves out of our stupor, actually, because my sister and a friend of hers were having a retirement event, social event, at the University of the Pacific at about the same time as the Sycamore thing. So actually, I wasn't home kind of like bombed out at that point. I was actually at University of Pacific in a real classy place called the President's Room, which is a beautiful private little dining hall or a reception hall off the side of the president's office, which of course is Dr. Pamela Ibeck, which is in Anderson Hall, which is 2 buildings behind the Burns Tower, kind of sort of in the middle of the campus. Pretty centrally located, pretty near the old McCaffrey Center. The McCaffrey Center used to be the student union before they built that huge DeRosa student union, which is spectacular, by the way. That's another thing. We could spend a whole show just talking about University of the Pacific. And I've actually talked a lot about them in previous shows. So anyway, so I had so much to do on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday that I missed that incredible triple header of events on Saturday. Now, on Sunday, I could, and my wife and I were actually having a Mother's Day yesterday, by the way, because we went to Ashland, Oregon the week before to the Shakespearean Festival, the world famous, internationally famous Shakespearean Festival. That was her actual Mother's Day gift from a friend of hers. And by the way, I want to compare Ashland, Oregon. I want to talk about Ashland, Oregon, another show, to talk about what can happen in a downtown when you put together a spectacular series of things that really click, and you get tourism and money that comes in, and what can happen with that. And Stockton, with an inland port, a deep water channel, great weather, the Delta nearby, reasonably good sports with University of Pacific and Delta College, and all the other stuff we have with the Stockton ballpark and the Stockton Heat hockey and all this other, should just be a gold mine for tourism.
I agree with you. And also, by the way, Ashland, Oregon, home to Southern Oregon University.
That's right.
Yes.
In fact, we stayed in a motel right across the street from Southern Oregon University.
Southern Oregon, one of the top NIA
Yes.
power football schools.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. We were right there, Southern Oregon. By the way, you can walk Ashland, Oregon. The whole city is about 10 blocks long. The official population is about 20,000, but on any given day in the summer, at the height of the Shakespearean Festival, by the way, goes from February to October. But in that time frame, in the summer, the high season, as you might want to call it, they have as many as 10 or 15,000 people visiting.
Wow.
Or I don't know, maybe 5,000 people visiting. Then you got the population of the school. So Ashland, Oregon's really at times about 45,000 people. Now, of course, I'm from Chico State, and we boosted the population in Chico a bit too with our university, as any college town will. So that's all the things that happen. As, you always hear people say, nothing to do in Stockton, boring, got to go out of town, got to drive to Barrie, got to go to LA, got to go to the mountains, got to go to the ocean. All that's great, by the way. There's nothing wrong with doing any of that. Now, I just told you what 1 week could happen and how I couldn't even get to all of it, and that having too good a time kind of wore me out to even get to half of it. Let me name off all the things that in a normal week also happen. I can't think exactly what they call this event. There's more than one, by the way. You might know, Dustin. If Joynies were here, she'd know for sure, and some people out there in the greater KXVS broadcasting studio lobby would probably know this. But every other Tuesday night, there's like these interactive art things that go on. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've heard of them before.
Yeah, there's adult art painting. Well, they say adult. It's not, let me rephrase that. Anybody's welcome to do this, and then some of them are called adult. I believe because what they're allowing or asking people to paint is more of a kind of a freedom of expression type of painting. Now, these events, by the way, what they do is they'll take about a long table. They'll put a bunch of tables together, make a long row or a couple rows, and the easels are set up in almost like a row of tents there. But there's easels on each side of the table, and people can sit there and they have little cups of paint. And what they do is they sit there and paint, and then they're served food and drinks. And part of the idea of these things, not only to get people to be creative and express themselves and have a good time, is also to create businesses for the local places. Now, the places I know of so far that have done this include the Miracle Miles Whiskey Barrel, the Deliberation Room's done them, Red Orchids Cafe downtown has done them. I don't know if Werlo's has done that yet, but I know that the Ave has done it. There's quite a few places in Stockton that have done it. I probably haven't hit half of them. But so that's something that happens, I believe, at least one of these organizations does this every other Tuesday. And I know that Jasmine is having a birthday version of one of these things. Our friend Jasmine Leak coming up in a week or two on a Tuesday night. So I'm looking for, and that one's downtown, I believe. I'm looking forward to that.
By the way, next week I believe Conversations Over Cocktail. Tuesday.
Yeah. I love Conversations Over Cocktails because I love to have cocktails. I love to converse.
And it's actually going to be at Channel Brewing.
Oh, there you go.
The next tower up is a couple of days later.
And that brings me to kind of like sort of our closing kind of crescendo of things you can do here. Mm-hmm. People say they love live music, and in some, dancing too. Not every place is dancing, but live music. I'm going to name off, and I know I'm missing a lot of them, but I'm going to name off all the places I know of that have live music in Stockton. Okay. Got Take 5 at the Valley Brewing Company, which actually I believe is an official partnership with UOP, right?
Yeah, right. I believe so. Right over here. On the Miracle Mile.
And it's a specially beautifully designed music room, music banquet dining hall.
Yeah, they have comedy shows and
everything. Right, and they have comedy shows. And that was created out of kind of an empty warehouse thing. And then you got to give the Valley Brew credit for that. Then you've got Werlo's. We know they're pretty renowned now for having music. Was it 6 or 7 nights a week?
Yeah, basically across the street.
Pretty much every night. Across the street
from us here at KXVS and the Peace and Justice Center.
Then you've got gently jazz or something similar to jazz or improvisation or folk music at the very least at the Mile Wine. Then you've got music at least 3 nights a week, I think, at Garlic Brothers out by the water.
Still haven't been to Garlic Brothers.
I'm very familiar with it. I'll tell you why in a moment. And then you've got DeVega Brothers in the Stone Creek Village, which is where my wife and I go dancing a lot. Then you've got music and dancing at West Lane Bowl. And I'd say it's either once a week or a couple times every other week you've got music at the Whiskey Barrel. And then I don't know what the current state of the Shadows is on North Pacific Avenue, but the Shadows has been renowned for music over the years. And generally when they're open for business, they do have music. And then, of course, my Peruvian party wife and I, Becky, are members of the Village West Yacht Club, which has a really blowout Taco Tuesday that we go to quite often during the summer. And that's across the water from Garlic Brothers. And sometimes we'll start at the Village West Yacht Club and we'll go to Garlic Brothers. So that's just the ones I can name. I know I'm leaving out quite a few. Occasionally there's live music at Deliberation Room. Red Orchids has a lot of things going. Red Orchids has models. They actually do like lingerie shows and model shows from time to time there also. They have an Asian Chamber coming up this Thursday night in which they're going to have Polynesian dancers, among other things. That's going to be fun. Now, do you know what Polynesian dancers do, Dustin, or why there's...
I've seen them, yeah.
With the grass skirts and the coconut shells. Yeah. Can't ask for much more than that. Then you've got every 3 Thursdays of every month generally throughout the year, you've got chamber mixers. They're open to the public. You can go to these chamber mixers, Stockton Greater Chamber, African American Chamber, the Asian Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber. All these different chambers have these mixers, and you can network with business people, and most especially small independent business people, or places like KXVS that are trying to make a local statement. Then, as if all that just pure fun stuff wasn't good enough, if you got the high culture and the intellectual thing, you've got special movies from time to time at Delta College or University of the Pacific. And then University of the Pacific has special lecture series. For example, because I'm the facilitator of the Downtown Comeback Club, I got invited by professors from the University of the Pacific to go to the private reception in the president's room one time to then meet personally, and then later hear a person named Maria Hinojosa, who apparently in a big-time national network broadcaster on NPR radio, speak to the University of the Pacific audience in the DeRosa Center. And then, of course, they had, I think recently had a movie series with, and I think it was at Pacific about the killing fields of Cambodia. So, and then we have an international film festival here every year. Mm-hmm. So with all those things, Stockton is plenty alive! ! Goodness gracious, you couldn't be more. As I said, it's so alive, it nearly killed me last week. Unfortunately, that's not, I don't learn from those things. I'll be out there again, like right there again, partying with the young folks in the near future. You guys, these tower ups may be the end of me.
Taking the glasses off, Nate, taking the glasses off.
Yep. Yeah, actually, I left the whole suit on today. Usually when we get into the serious part of the show, I take my coat off and loosen my tie.
It's not that warm in here today, actually.
Actually, in here it's really comfortable despite how hot it is outside.
It is.
I have to give it to KXVS. We have good climate control in here. Plus, this little miniature fan that's off camera actually feels very good.
So, Nate, what's the closing segment of the show, basically?
Well, The closing segment of the show is, despite all that fun I told you about, there's great culture here, too.
There is.
My wife last year, not this year, I could have done it this year, but last year, we saw 2 ballets at the Bob Hope Theater, both done by Russian National Ballet Touring Companies.
Wow.
One was Swan Lake, and the other was the Nutcracker Suite.
Nice.
Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that ballet is exactly my number one favorite thing to do all the time. And then this past Sunday was the classic movie North by Northwest at the Bob Hope Theater. I missed that too.
Wow.
Because I was actually at the Cineplex with my wife.
There's so much going on, Nate.
See, there you go.
You need to duplicate yourself.
That way. No, that'd be scary.
It would.
Humankind can only take one person that can talk this much. Although I do intend to have guest speakers, because I know the people that want to listen to me talk all the time.
Nate, and
we're gonna have guest speakers. I'm working on that very hard.
Well, everybody, this has been Stockton Alive, and thank you for tuning in with Nate Knott right here on KXVS, the voice of Stockton.